Hello everyone, this is Dr. Culber from Star Trek Discovery, hoping that you are having an amazing time at the Starfleet International Virtual Conference there in August 13th, which happens to be my daddy's birthday, by the way. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great time. I wish I could be there with you, but as you probably know, we are making more episodes as we speak. I'm probably in space right now, saving someone's life or mental health. Who knows? Anyway, wishing you all the best. Mwah!
Assistant Surgeon General's report, stardate 2207-25.13. Dr. Wade Poitras reporting. I am the Chief Medical Officer on board the USS Cerberus, and currently I am in command of a medical away team on the surface of Vega 4. It's beautiful here, but not for long, I'm afraid. Let me start at the beginning. The Cerberus received a distress signal approximately 40 hours ago from the colony on Vega 4. Vega 4 is a colony on the outskirts of the Federation in the Lyra sector, I believe. The message itself was distorted, but the gist of the message was that there was some type of plague ravaging the surface, and that there was some kind of Borg threat. Captain Estelle understandably entered the sector carefully, but long-range scans indicated no Borg activity and no Borg vessels. We entered orbit around Vega 4 while I was preparing our away teams, and upon establishing orbit, we were dispatched to the surface. When we arrived approximately 12 hours ago, my medical team and I entered the main clinic that serves the colonists here. We were told by clinic staff that the chief surgeon had been taken away by zombies or had become a zombie. The reports were confused, but they began to make sense with time. The staff also reported that we were under attack by the Borg, but I assured them that there were no Borg ships in the immediate vicinity, that we'd scanned the area completely, and that we were there to help them and that they were safe. I and my team immediately established a medical command post in the clinic, and my personnel began interviewing patients and staff. The first thing that struck my staff and I were that nearly every patient in the clinic had cybernetic implants of some kind. Some had multiple. And while in and of itself, cybernetic implants are not uncommon in the 24th century, the sheer quantity of them in patients on a colony this size was the first sign of trouble. My patients were in various states of consciousness and all had some version of flu-like symptoms. My staff and I responded as quickly as we deemed was safe. We gathered histories and blood and tissue samples from the patients. There was a lot of confusion. People on the ground here are talking about the Borg, they're talking about this plague. I've got to be honest, there's a lot of fear and anxiety, but we're doing the best we can. But that being said, what my investigation has found is quite troubling. I don't think we're dealing with two separate threats here. There isn't an attack coming from an enemy, and there isn't just an ordinary plague. I think that they're one and the same. I think we're dealing with some kind of Borg nanovirus. Now, the timescales may vary a little bit because my information is secondhand, but from what I've gathered, patients initially become symptomatic with signs and symptoms that are not unlike the common influenza virus. Headache, fever, nausea, fatigue, pale, gray, clammy skin, but patients also report that it feels like their skin is crawling. As the symptoms worsen over 48 to 72 hours, small cybernetic-like implants begin to appear either on the surface or subdermally in these patients. By day 3, the patients enter a trance-like state or full unconsciousness. And then hours later, they regain consciousness, but are unresponsive to staff. Their eyes are open, and they try to leave the clinic, but they don't respond. I've seen 2 patients enter this phase myself since we've been here, and I have them both currently restrained with force fields. If that isn't troubling enough, upon examining the tissue and blood samples, I haven't been able to identify a normal biological virus or bacteria or fungus that could be causing this problem, but what I have found are nanobots. Nanobots that appear to be mimicking the properties of a virus. They attach themselves to cells like a virus, and upon gaining entry to the cell, they hijack the cellular machinery and begin assimilating that cell. These nanoviruses seem to be able to adapt to all of the host's immune system defenses, and they have an affinity for neurological tissue. I believe this is why patients enter this altered state of consciousness. Their higher brain functions are being hijacked or shut down in some way. I have reports from clinic staff that before we arrived, several patients were unconscious, and when clinic staff returned in the morning, they found that those patients were gone. They had walked out of the clinic during the night and haven't been heard from since. We also have 1 or 2 reports that colonists have seen these patients gathering at a storage facility on the outskirts of the colony. Now, this colony is sitting along a major trade route, and the last ship to pass through was 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. Some of the colonists here have mentioned that it had a crew complement of 80 and that they stopped over for a couple of days, and that several of the crew were sick. There have been no reports of actual Borg activity in this sector for several years, and really I haven't heard of any Starfleet vessel that's encountered a Borg ship since the USS Voyager returned from the Delta Quadrant several years ago. Very few of these colonists have ever encountered the Borg, but everyone has heard the stories, and that is contributing to the confusion. But from what I've seen, their fears are not far off the mark. I believe we're dealing with a new type of Borg threat. Some kind of Borg nanovirus that arrived here at Vega 4 on a cargo vessel. Where that cargo vessel picked it up, I have no idea. I've found the virus in fluid samples from several of my patients, but it does not appear that the virus is airborne. It transmits via droplets, like a conventional flu-like illness. But the really troubling part is that I've deduced that the incubation period is approximately 3 weeks, and that the patients are infectious and spreading the virus for nearly the entirety of this incubation period. This colony has 1,200 people, and patients with symptoms only started appearing 5 or 6 days ago. There are now 78 people missing. I've got a clinic here with 19 symptomatic patients, 2 of which are restrained, and 11 of which are in altered states of consciousness. I think these patients are being assimilated into some kind of Borg light, and that most of this colony might be infected already. I only have 24 beds in this clinic, and we're going to run out of restraining fields pretty quick if these patients start trying to get up and leave the clinic. I don't know what's happening to the patients once they leave. Are the Borg coming to get them? Is there some way that they're evolving into the more traditional drone that we're familiar with? I have no idea. I'd just be speculating. But what I do know is that we are in real trouble here on Vega 4. If we start having to deal with actual Borg drones on top of the nanovirus that we're battling, then this clinic is going to be fighting a two-front war of assimilation. And I think we'll end up being a fully fledged Borg outpost in a week or two. We definitely need to implement some kind of quarantine, but with a 3-week incubation period and no lead time here, the transient population is likely spreading this nanovirus. It's likely already in transit and off of Vega 4. We need to come up with a plan that is going to deal with this nanovirus when it starts appearing in other Federation colonies or on other Federation planets. In the meantime, my team and I are going to do the best we can here on the surface. We're in triage mode, and I'm worried that this entire population is infected already. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. I don't think there's a damn thing I can do about it. That concludes my report. Wish us luck. Dr. Poitras out.
Okay, so have we got an update where we are at the moment in relation to these this virus?
Best as I can figure out is that there are quite a few people already falling sick. There are 1,200 people in the colony, and 78 of them have already gone missing. So he's going to run out of beds and force fields very, very quickly. We need to restrain this situation quickly before it expands any further. It's going to be a nightmare.
Okay. In relation to biobeds and force fields, do we have any medical ships in the area that can divert, or any Galaxy class starships that have that amount of beds and mobile force field generators on board? If someone can look to see if we've got any of those in the area, we can ask for those to be diverted. When you say there's 78 missing, as in unaccounted for or presumed dead?
Unaccounted for, as far as I'm aware. I'm going to suggest that we get Dr. Poitras to put trackers on some of his infected crew in case they go missing, then at least we can perhaps track where they're going.
Okay. And how are we with tissue samples and making any form of headway towards tackling this and trying to restrict it?
We need to get them sent to us at Starfleet Medical ASAP so that we can work on them and figure out how these things are working.
I think if we can try and locate or try and see what the nearest starship to the colony is and see if we can't divert them there to pick up those samples, and certainly try and supply some more mobile force fields, and if need be, maybe they could use one of their cargo bays as an emergency triage room.
Dr. Rosen's, Keys and Harper, what sort of ships have you got in your vicinities? You're the guys that are nearest to this outbreak.
I'm on the USS Nomad, so we're a sovereign class. We can assist you for sure. I also have a medical shuttle that I could dispatch as well.
Excellent.
And I'm on the USS Haven, which is actually a medical ship. So we have a lot of the supplies, the availability for beds and whatnot.
Okay, great. If we can start making inroads to get those to the colony, the more beds and more mobile force fields we have, the better, really.
I
so we
think
can't.
probably need to put a call out to the Greater Fleet to see if we can get some others from outside these nearby regions in as well, because we're going to need all we can get.
Okay, and how have we worked out if this virus is airborne, or how's it being transmitted? Do we know yet?
Seems to be larger droplets, which is, as far as I can tell, very close to being airborne, but at the moment it's larger droplets. So perhaps we should get respiratory precautions in place as well. I don't know whether we get biohazard gear in place. I would probably recommend it on the being cautious.
Okay, USS Haven, do you have Class 1 biohazard kit on board?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. That's it. So if you use that and use some caution, we don't want you getting infected
Okay.
when you arrive. If you could let us know time-wise how long it's going to take you to get there. have a chat, work out what time. Just let Captain Slack know so she can update me at some point so we know what sort of time span we're looking at. As far as symptoms go and incubation period, what do we know on that?
Very flu-like, so headaches, shivers, temperatures, but also people feeling things crawling under their skin. I presume that's the effect of the nanites interacting with the cell structure. So we need to not miss anything, really. We need to really keep an eye on this. I don't know that we can call this really behaving like a virus. If way Dr. Poitras is correct, this is basically a little piece of Borg technology more than a virus. And I don't know that our traditional viral stratagems are going to work. We might need to look at more the technological side of things, perhaps radiations, perhaps magnetic technology.
Okay. I can put out in a call to Cold Station 12, where the viral storage is, and see if any of the resident doctors there have any knowledge of it, so we can try and trace that down. Does anybody know if we've had any Borg incursions or any contact with Borg in the last month or so?
That's the worrying thing.
Unknown
Apparently
contact
none.
on long-range sensors, possibly Borg.
Okay.
There was mention of a cargo ship, I think, if I recall correctly. They don't know where it came from, but they may have been patient zero, so to speak.
Do we know if there's any records of the trade routes? Do we know of any of the ship that we're talking about? And I'm wondering too if we should be establishing quarantine in that sector.
Absolutely.
That'll be done now. So I'll get that done now. So that's done. In relation to incubation, just remind me again what the incubation period appears to be.
Potentially up to 3 weeks. So this may have already spread further than us would like to admit.
Okay. And have we still got contact with those on the colony, or is that gone as well now?
As of now, we have. I don't know that we're going to have it much longer at the rate things are progressing.
Okay, let's get them aware of what's going on incubation period wise, and see if they can't dig up and go through records to show who's been in and out of there in the last 4 weeks, I think. At least then we can try and track down where it's going.
We need to get all medical teams track and tracing on this one.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that anyone passing out the perimeter of this area gets magnetically scanned or put through some sort of magnetic equipment so that we can perhaps tell whether they've been infected with these nanites before they become symptomatic. I think we need to just get that quarantine perimeter up and not let anyone out of that perimeter, and that is going to be a nightmare. I don't quite know how we're going to realistically manage it, but I think that's going to be one of our best strategies to contain this thing.
Okay, we'll do that with one port in, one port out, and the biobeds can, the residence filters can be adjusted to compensate for nanoprobes. So if you let them know on the colony that they need to realign their biobeds to detect those, and once we get ships into the area, it'll be one port in, one port out, so we can keep tracks on what's going on then. So no one leaves. So, anything else?
We just need those samples in at Starfleet Medical as soon as possible so we can analyse what they're doing and how they're evading the immune system. The more we know about this, the better.
Okay, so if we can get the 2 ships there, then if we can give estimates when you get them, and then we know where we're going from there, we can advise the colony when help is going to arrive. Anything else?
Dr. Poitras, he talked about the people not being communicative. They were like as if they were in a trance. And I'm wondering though whether they are communicating via like a technologically induced form of telepathy. And I'm wondering if there's a way to interrupt this communication so that we can communicate with them. And I'm not sure how we would go about doing that. And I'm thinking also, would we not do well to communicate with Starfleet engineers? Because this is their nanoprobes, and I'm wondering if they would be able to lend us a hand.
Okay, definitely. We can talk to them. I think disruption-wise, I think we're going to need to just check with. I think what we'll do is we'll speak to Coal Station 12 where the viruses are. I do know they have nanoprobe research there, and see if they can recommend anything in the way of a pulse to try and disrupt that link, if there is a link there.
I was also thinking that it might be prudent perhaps to send an EMH to speak with the team that's on the ground before sending any of us down. What do you think?
Yep, good call. Whoever gets there first, if they can do that, and then then at least we'll have an idea of what's going on down there.
Okay.
I hope he doesn't get.
Investigating whether any types of radiation disrupt these nanites.
Well, I do know, I was just recently actually reading an article in the Starfleet journal, and it talked about the Omicron radiation. The only thing is it takes high doses, which could be extremely dangerous for humans. So, there's that, but then we're risking more harm, not knowing exactly what the radiation would cause, if not death.
There's also thoron radiation, delta radiation, hyperonic radiation, so those are well worthwhile investigating as well, I think.
Okay. If we speak to Coal Station 12, someone can do that. They might be able to give us a little bit more light on which one we need to use if we can. Okay. We set? Done?
Yeah.
I think
We have an outbreak on our ship. I just got an alert that there's crew members acting like zombies, trying to get them to sick bay right now. I'm going to go have to deal with this.
Oh,
Okay.
keep us updated on that.
Good luck,
All
Captain.
security teams, report to my location. Frozen out.
And
Okay.
you
Okay, I think that about covers most of it. Anybody got anything else before we put plans into place?
I think we need to just get moving on this one fast, boss.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Good.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's go. Okay. Someone, as soon as you arrive, let us know. Let us know what's going on.
Yes,
and we'll keep an eye on that. Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, let me introduce myself. I am the Deputy Surgeon General of Starfleet Medical, and I thought I would come on here and say a little bit about what we do in Starfleet Medical and let you know about us. So let's start off with our command structure first. Of course, we all know that we have a Surgeon General who is Fleet Captain Mark Logan, and I am his deputy. We also have a Chief of Operations who is David Yee, and he has a deputy now, Wade Poitras. Now, that's our command structure of Starfleet Medical. Then we have regional ASGs, Assistant Surgeon Generals. So I thought I would just list all of the Surgeon Generals for each of the regions so that you know who to go to should you want any help or further information. So in Region 1, we have Anna Hotaling, and please excuse me if I get any of your names wrong in pronunciation. In Region 2, we have Deborah Keyes. Region 3 is Donna Reitzer-Jarrett. Region 4 is Roberta Adams. Region 5, Hector Gutierrez. Region 7, the ASG is Ariel Vitali and his deputy is Stephen Vetrano. Region 8, Greg Barlow. Region 9 is a difficult one. We recently lost Anne-Laure Perrin, And so we currently have no Region 9 ASG, but we do have a Deputy Surgeon, Assistant Surgeon General, Sylvain Bertrand, and we have a volunteer for Region 9 who is taking all step counts at the moment as a temporary thing. Region 10, we have Wade Poitras. Region 11, we have David Hines, and David Lee is his deputy. Region 12, Laura Felty is the ASG, and Richard Ward is the deputy. Region 13, we have Lynn Harper and Deputy Ed Markham. Region 15, we have Michael Rosen. Region 17, Brett McKiff. Region 19, Felicia Hung. Region 20, Andy Marsden with the deputy of James Goulding. Now, that's the structure for the main Starfleet Medical. We have got the main Starfleet Medical webpage on Facebook, so if you want to join that, please do find us. It should just be listed as Starfleet Medical, you should find it. And then each of the regions have their own regional ASG page. Now, what's the purpose of those? Quite simply, it's so that whilst all the sort of the central information is shared on the main Starfleet Medical page, anything that's a bit more regional, relevant to where you live, would be shared on the regional ASG page. And also any information that's passed down from fleet higher up structures, that announcements like the Solar System Step Count Challenge, and any certificates that people have earned in their region, they might be shared there as well. So it's a good place to go to find those pages as well and join them. Now, we don't just have Assistant Surgeon Generals, we also have leads in the field. They were previously called committee chiefs, but since it's just one person, it's not a committee, we changed that to leads in the field. And we have 4 of these. So we've got Women's Health, who is led by Deborah Keyes, Men's Health, that's led by David Yee, Emergency Preparedness, that's led by Cal Moosmeds Meltos, and Public Health, that's led by Brett McKiff. And they highlight all of those areas within Starfleet Medical, sharing posts about it and giving you guys information that you might find helpful. Now, what else do we do within Starfleet Medical? Of course, hopefully you're all aware by now of our Solar System Step Challenge that's been going on for the whole of this year so far and will continue through to December 2022. So what do you do to get involved in that? Because I'd love to see more of you getting involved. Quite simply, you just take your steps. Now, most people have smart devices such as watches or phones. Perhaps you have a pedometer. There's all sorts of things out there. But if you really can't, have a chat with your ASG or even myself to try and see whether we can figure out a way for you to take some other kind of measurement so that you can get involved. I have some people in wheelchairs. I have some people who can't take step counts. I've got one person who can only, his phone or something only does it in miles. We figure out things so that people can get involved. So have a chat with us. And then once you, each challenge month has certain deadlines on it. So it's split into, it depends a little bit on how the weeks fall. There might be 5 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the month. But generally, on average, there's about 4, and they go through from a Friday through to the following, from a Saturday, sorry, through to the following Friday. But each challenge, as I post them up, have those listed as dates, so you can just reference that. What you then need to do is take your step count for each week and send them to your Assistant Surgeon General, who will keep the tally for us. And then at the end of the month, they pass them on to me. Now, there are deadlines for these because it's a lot of work, trust me. I'm producing somewhere in the region of 200 certificates per month. And it takes a bit of time. So I like to get the data in swiftly without too much delay, otherwise it messes things up. So if you could please pay attention to those 48-hour deadlines, that would be wonderful. And you just send them to your ASGs, they pass on to me, and it's job done. And at the end of the month, I post up all the certificates to your ASGs, and then your ASGs will get them out to you guys. There really is no limitation, you know, in terms of who can take part. It's the only person you're really competing against is yourself. So don't worry about, oh, I'm not able to do very much walking, etc. Doesn't matter. Do what you can do. Next month, perhaps try and beat yourself. That's about it. It's just for fun. It's not a competition, except maybe against yourself. But if you don't want to be even against yourself, that's absolutely fine too. The point is just to get people moving, involved, and having a bit of fun at the same time. So so far we've had January, there was Pluto, February, there was Neptune, March there was Uranus, April there was Saturn, May we had Titan, June we had Jupiter, and this month, July, for a few more days, it's Ganymede. So what's going to come in August? You'll have to stay tuned. It won't be long now before the announcement is made. Actually, I just realized it's August by the time you get this, isn't it? There's a blooper for you. Yeah, so there's August as well. And I will release them all as they come along. What else do we do in Starfleet Medical? We have the Hypo Spray. That's our quarterly auxiliary magazine that we produce. It's mainly our staff members that contribute it, but we welcome articles from absolutely anyone, as long as they're medically themed. And the only thing we are quite strict about is that no one is allowed to give medical advice. That's to protect Starfleet International, really. So, you know, because one lawsuit could take down the whole fleet. So we're not going to go there, no medical advice. But other than that, everyone's allowed to contribute, and you can just contact your ASG or myself for information as to who you need to send that to. The medical advice also applies to posts on any of our pages as well, and we will adhere to that strictly. So by all means, share links for pages, articles that you found on the web that aren't written by you. That's all fine. Star Trek stuff is always welcomed, but just make sure that you personally are not giving any medical advice, regardless of any training you may have. Okay, so we have the Hyper Spray, and we've been producing that every quarter for the last nearly 3 years now, and I think it's been quite popular. They can all be found on the Starfleet Medical Facebook page, and I also post them up on the business only pages and members only pages as well. So you can find them all in the file section there. In the Hyper Spray, as well as articles that we have produced, usually around a theme that we create, there's also a cadets corner, which contains some fun bits for not just cadets, but adults as well to have a go at and try. So why not have a look at those? Okay. Now, aside from the Hyper Spray, we also offer awards. So there are, if you go to our medical website, which is medical.sfi.org, and you click on the menu for awards, you have a choice where you can look at the awards manual, and then you can see the occupational life or staff awards. And you can also nominate yourself or somebody else via the awards nomination form that can be found there. So if you think you or someone else you know is eligible for an award, why not tell us about it? And you might find a nice little certificate and coming your way. On the medical website as well, there's also a wonderful Starfleet Medical Handbook that we've produced, which you can find via the resources tab. It's well worth a read. It's good fun, and I think you'll enjoy that. So why not go and have a look out for that as well? There are also some other types of awards we do. They're called the core levels, and these more information about these can also be found on our SF Medical website, medical.sfi.org. Again, look under the resources tab and look for medical training. These core levels range from 1 to 10, with each of the core levels corresponding to a fictional medical rank. Now, these ranks are just for fun. You do not have to have any of them in order to achieve any, fleet position. They're not relevant to that. So don't worry about that. But they're just for you to enjoy getting into sort of the feel of Starfleet Medical, if you like. So they go from core level 1, which would be a star-based medic, up to core level 10, which is our top dude, the Surgeon General. When you've done the exams, you just need to send your certificates and the form that we've created for you to fill in with dates of certificates as well to the email found on the form on that website, and we will take the rest from there. So there's quite a lot going on in Starfleet Medical. I hope you can agree. If you think that you want to join us, then how would you go about doing that? Well, it's very easy. So there's two things. You need to log into the main database recording. If you go to member and then affiliation status, you can click on Starfleet Medical there, and you can that's all you need to do really. And then the other thing you will also need to do is again go to our medical.sfi.org website, and on the home menu there's a drop down menu and there's a join Starfleet Medical link there. Just fill in the form there, and then Bob's your uncle, you're all signed up to Starfleet Medical. Okay, so just one more thing before I forget. These Starfleet Medical badges, mine's gold because I'm a staff member, but Mark has got silver ones that I think he is still able to sell. So if any of you guys, I'll just zoom in a little bit, want a Starfleet Medical badge, they're pretty cool, just let Mark know, and he will let you know how to go about getting one. So I think I've nattered on a fair amount there. So thank you for listening to me spew about Starfleet Medical. And I hope you enjoy what we've got to offer. And I look forward to seeing more of you signing up to us and taking part in the fun soon. Peace and long life. Deputy Surgeon General out.
Hello, I am Captain Deborah Carter Keys, a research assistant in the Research and Development Department of Starfleet Medical. The majority of my work has been researching for the Starfleet Medical database. I have researched the various species of Star Trek and their immune system, endocrine system, renal and urinary system, circulatory system, digestive system, and reproductive system. Nervous system. I've also done psychiatry and psychology in Star Trek and researched medical conditions in humans, medications and drugs in Star Trek, and medical conditions in Star Trek. I hope that when the database gets up and going that you will all take a look at it and explore it and see what's in there and enjoy. Captain Deborah Keys out.
Greetings, Starfleet. I am Marine Captain Cal Meltos of the 169th USS Gorkon, Region 1, also the Chief Medical Officer thereof. Today, I come to you in my role as Starfleet Medical's lead for the Department of Emergency Preparedness. I just started this role in January, getting it all figured out. We post articles about preparedness, emergencies, disasters, to help you be more informed in your own life. Remember, we only play doctors, though. I thank my superiors for putting up with me learning the position, and in exchange, as soon as we get all the details sorted out, in September, October, we will be having a preparedness challenge. More details on that to come later. Thank you for letting me serve you in this role. Live long and prosper.
Good day. Hi there. I'm Second Lieutenant Hector Gutierrez. I'm the CMO for USS Antares. Also the Assistant Surgeon General for Region 5. As in those positions, I have the unique opportunity to do some patient education, sharing information for health and welfare, so that way everyone in my region stays healthy, safe, kind of an advisor, sometimes bartender, sometimes counselor, for minor things, but mostly is an information source, so that way they can be educated and know how to take care of themselves on board in their chapters. I've got 11 chapters, 4 of them physical meetings, the rest are correspondence, and through my Facebook pages they get to see information that helps them for the future, such as CPR training, first aid, safety tips. Especially in my region we have mountain, ocean, river, a lot of outdoor activities. And I thank you for your time, and greetings from the Great Northwest.
Hi, I am Captain Deborah Keys, and I am the lead for Women's Health, a part of Starfleet Medical. I post articles on women's health, wellness, and issues regularly on the Starfleet Medical page. I have also written several articles about women in the quarterly hypospray. Articles such as The Women of Starfleet Medical, Deanna Troy, Counseling, Crisis, and Community, The Future of Women's Reproductive Health as Portrayed in Star Trek, Betazoids, Telepathic Abilities, Bajoran Women, and the Phase. I hope you all take advantage of the hypospray, read the articles, and I hope you learn something that you didn't know about Star Trek. And Captain Deborah Keyes out.
Greetings from Region 13. Bonjour de la Région 13. I'm Captain Lynn Harper, Commanding Officer of the USS Nomad and Assistant Surgeon General for Region 13. For those of you who are not affiliated with Starfleet Medical, let me take this opportunity to invite you to join our ranks. The Starfleet Medical Team is a lively group who strive to provide resources and activities which seek to foster a sense of well-being and healthy living for all in Starfleet International. Some of you are already engaged in the current Starfleet Medical Step Challenge, which is taking us on a guided tour of the solar system. Each month fosters a new challenge, and it is never too late to take a step towards a more active lifestyle. I encourage you to check out the Starfleet Medical Facebook page and your regional Starfleet Medical page. There's always something interesting being posted. Until next time, live long and prosper.
Greetings, Starfleet. I'm Ensign Felicia Hung, Assistant Surgeon General of Region 19 and a medical officer aboard the USS Panda. You may know me from the post from the medical news I post on the from the Starfleet Medical Facebook group, and I'm also in charge of collecting data for the Region 19 Step Challenge. On that note, if there's anyone here who's watching this who's from Region 19, who's in Region 19, please contact me. Thanks. Bye.
This is Chief Medical Officer of the USS Haven, Deborah Keyes. I am also a Starfleet psychologist and have been asked to do an evaluation on an individual named Worf. The case number is 1839664. Date of the report is 2374. His date of birth, December 9th, 2340. The last Starfleet rank he held was Lieutenant Commander. Purpose for evaluation. This is the first formal psychological evaluation for this 34-year-old Klingon male, who has 5 years of formal education at Starfleet Academy, and is Lieutenant Commander stationed at Deep Space Nine as Strategic Operational Officer. He is being sent for a psychological evaluation to determine his psychological status for commission as Federation Ambassador to his home planet, Kronos. The purpose of this current evaluation is to screen for evidence of a psychological disorder and to clarify the nature of any underlying depressive disorder. The assessment procedures were research of the Klingon culture, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, a personality test, the personality questionnaire, mental status exam, review of prior psychological interviews, review of personnel files, consulted with Dr. Julian Bashir, physician, and consulted with Counselor Deanna Troy, former therapist. This patient participated in a 1 hour of testing and 3 hours of diagnostic interview. The tests were administered and interpreted by Deborah Keyes, licensed mental health counselor and master's in counseling. Background. Worf was born in 2340 into a powerful political house, the House of Mogg, on Kronos. He reports vivid memories of what he calls a typical Klingon childhood. On his first ritual hunt, before the age of 6, with one of his father's friends, he attacked a wild beast and it mauled his arm, providing a lifelong scar. However, his life changed forever in 2346 when his parents were killed during a surprise attack by the Romulans at the Kitmore outpost. He reports having no memory whatsoever of his father. The colony's distress call was answered by the Federation ship USS Intrepid, and Chief Petty Officer Sergei Rosenchek found Worf in the rubble and took him in after failing to find any living relatives. Rozhenko and his wife Helena raised him on a small farm on the planet Gault, a world of about 20,000 inhabitants, almost all of which are human. Worf also has two brothers, one Klingon who survived the destruction of Kitmore Outpost, but they did not find each other until they were adults, and a human brother with whom he often quarreled. At the age of 15, while playing a championship game as captain of his soccer team, he unintentionally broke the neck of an opponent, and the boy died a day later, forever guilting him into a life of restraint among humans. To feed his thirst for Klingon culture, the Rozhencheks consciously exposed him to as much as they possibly could, serving him Klingon food, including his favorite, rokeg, which is blood pie, and sending him to Kronos for his initial Age of Ascension ceremony in 2355 at the age of 15. As usual, when on the homeworld, he stayed with a cousin's family, but felt rejected and ran away to the nearby mountains. There, while undergoing the rite of Majkar in the lava caves of Namat, the vision of the original Klingon warrior Kalis came to him, prophesying that Worf would do what no other Klingon had done. Worf entered Starfleet Academy with his human brother in 2357. The fear of depending on others protected him and had been the main point to come out in his entrance exam psychological test. He had one of his most serious romances with the half-human ambassador, Kate Ilyer. Worf had ended this initial affair in 2359 during his academy years. His brother dropped out of school, but Worf went on to graduate in 2361 and was commissioned with the rank of ensign, becoming the first Klingon officer in Starfleet. Although he takes immense pride and sense of honor from serving in Starfleet, most other Klingons shunned and belittled his choice of vocation. In 2364, Worf signed aboard the USS Enterprise D in the Command Division as junior grade lieutenant. It is important to note that Worf was unwilling to share what he did on or that transpired for him for the 3 years between graduation and commission. After the death of the security chief, he became acting chief and then assumed the post full-time in early 2365, switching to security full-time in the operations division and gaining a promotion to full lieutenant. Also in 2365, while on the USS Enterprise D, he was reunited with his former love, Ambassador K'Elir. They mated, but when he asked her for marriage, she declined. In 2366, Worf is plunged into the politics of the Klingon Empire when his deceased father is accused of treason. He also learns that he has a brother, Kurn, who was not on the Kitmore Outpost when the massacre occurred. He and his brother decided to keep this a secret. Even when the traitor was proven to not be his father, Worf accepted decommission from Klingon society rather than cause an uproar in Empire politics had the truth come out. In 2367, Worf discovered he had a son, Alexander, as a result of his mating with Ambassador K'Elir. Shortly thereafter, K'Elir is seriously injured. He reports that before she dies, he takes her face in his hands and say, "Jahok, my blood," and she in turn, "Madok, our blood," which is the beginning of the marriage oath. But Worf stops, saying, saying that he does not want his humiliation to affect her or Alexander. After her death, Duras, who was the one that had attacked her, causing her death, Worf in turn kills Duras on his own ship. Captain Jean-Luc Picard had to file a formal report which is in Worf's personnel file. The report states, "It is with regret that I make this entry in the personnel file of Lieutenant Worf, whom I consider a fine officer. However, despite whatever sympathy I have for his personal reasons and the ways of his culture, I cannot condone murder by anyone wearing the Starfleet uniform. The officer in question is spared further disciplinary action only due to the circumstances of the location aboard the Klingon vessel, Vaughn, and the not expected indifference of the Klingon Empire to the incident. After the death of his mother, he sent Alexander to the Rozhenkos on Earth." Also in 2367, after a deflector blast attempt by Worf failed, he attempts suicide, feeling hopeless and that he is no longer a warrior because he is afraid of whatever is causing the sleeplessness of him and his crewmates. Apparently, Counselor Troy runs into his quarters and manages to convince him to put the knife down, telling him that whatever is tormenting them is just an illusion. Later in 2367, Worf resigns from Starfleet Commission to fight in the Klingon Civil War, which erupted when Duras' son, Toro, challenged Gowron for leadership in the Klingon Empire. Worf believed Gowron was the legitimate ruler and convinced his brother to bring forces loyal to him into the battle on Gowron's behalf. Worf served on his brother's ship. Gowron won the war after Starfleet exposed Romulan support for the House of Duras. In appreciation of his support, Chancellor Gowron restored Worf's honor, allowing Kurn to have a seat on the High Council as the recognized brother and representative of the House of Mogg. In 2368, when the Klingon Civil War was over, Worf had his Starfleet Commission reactivated. Helena Rozhenkos returned with Alexander to plead that Worf take him back for support and guidance. The two Worf and his son shared a testy relationship at first, but thanks to sessions with the ship counselor, whom he eventually selected as the boy's foster parent if need be, they fared better. Shortly after Worf had the Starfleet Commission reactivated, he is seriously injured when a support beam breaks and causes a heavy container to fall on him. He awakens in sickbay to shocking news. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Worf, however, believes his life is already over, so he asks Commander Riker to assist in his ceremonial suicide, Habak, citing the belief that no Klingon should live as an object of pity or shame. Dr. Crusher presents him with implants designed to partially restore the feeling in his legs, but Worf refuses, telling them he would rather die than be less than the man that he was. Riker confronts Worf, reminding him that the Klingon law dictates that it is Worf's son and not Riker who is supposed to assist in Worf's death. Unable to deny this, Worf abandons the idea of killing himself and asks to try Dr. Russell's surgery instead. In 2370, Worf and Counselor Troy dated for a few weeks. In 2371, Worf was promoted to lieutenant commander. Shortly thereafter, the Enterprise 1701D was destroyed at Viridian 3, and all the crew members seemed to go their own way. Worf sent Alexander once again to live with the Rozhenkos on Earth and went on extended leave to visit the Klingon monastery and clerics of Borath, the legendary site of the great warrior's predicted return. In search of a spiritual answer to the letdown the rapid events provoked, and that questioning of his own faith in the teaching of Kalos was shaken up when Kalos did appear to return. At the end of the crisis, Sisko convinced Worf to join the crew of Deep Space Nine as Strategic Operations Officer. In this role, he would coordinate all Starfleet activity in the Bajoran sector and act as executive officer of the USS Defiant, meaning he had to adjust to the requirements and obligations that came with the Red Command personnel uniform. For the first months, Worf had difficulty adjusting to life on the station, unintentionally overstepping his boundaries by acting as he did on the Enterprise, putting him for a while at odds with Chief of Security Odo. For Worf, the station's life seemed just too much gray. Worf admitted to continued bouts of depression over the end of what he perceived as glory days of the USS Enterprise D, and countered it somewhat by taking quarters on the station's starship, the USS Defiant, and finding a kinship with Dax, a friend who trains with the Betleth Sword of Honor and the Mek'leth Klingon blade weapon as well. In 2372, Worf's public opposition to the war against Cardassia caused his house to once again be stripped of its honor, properties and costs current his seat on the High Council. For 4 months later, his depressed brother showed up at the station, asking for his own suicide right, and that it was the only way to restore his honor. In this right, Worf would kill his brother. Worf failed in the first attempt to perform the ritual, which was interrupted by Dax, and later found he could not bring himself to do so again, as he had taken on a human feature of morality and would consider it murdering his brother. Worf realized his brother had no future, and short of suicide, opted to have his memory wiped and replaced with another Klingon identity, and sent him to live with the family friend. Even then, he lived with regret that his actions had been forever tainted by his human-learned values of mercy. In 2373, on detached leave in command of the USS Defiant, and on service with the Sovereign-class USS Enterprise, Worf briefly found himself back with his old colleagues when Captain Picard rescued the USS Defiant crew and fought off the Borg's would-be temporal sabotage. During a mission to the Gamma Quadrant, he was captured by the Dominion and held captive in a Jem'Hadar internment camp until successful escape. He was then assigned to serve aboard the IKS Rotarian under command of General Martok during the Dominion occupation of Deep Space Nine. For his help to the Klingon Empire, his status in the Empire was restored when he was asked to join the House of Martok, albeit the House of Mog remains stricken. Also, in 2373, Worf became involved with Deep Space Nine science officer Jadzia Dax, a Trill woman. She was familiar with Klingon customs due to the experience of the Dax symbiote previous host Curzon Dax. She was the first non-human that Worf could physically be with in the traditional Klingon way, although it still left bruises, cuts, and broken bones. In 2074, Worf and Jadzia were married, Klingon style. Later that year, under the temporary command of Major Kira Nerys, Lieutenant Commander Worf and Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax were assigned to rendezvous with a Cardassian operative, Glenn Lassaran, who had been passing military intelligence to Starfleet for 2 months. Lassaran requested a face-to-face meeting with Starfleet representatives at coordinates in the Badlands in order to personally convey information about the whereabouts and activities of founders in the Alpha Quadrant. As was learned later, in exchange for the information, Lassaran desired immediate assistance to defect from the Dominion in fear for his life. Worf and Dax attempted to rendezvous with Lassaran on Sokara outside a Dominion base. During a 2-day hike through the planet's jungle, Dax was injured by a Jem'Hadar patrol. An anticoagulant rendered Dax untreatable. Worf then opted to abandon the rendezvous in order to return Dax to a starbase for surgery. Lasarion was killed attempting to re-enter the Dominion base after a 2-day absence. The information Lasarion had to offer would have brought the war to a swifter end, thus saving millions of lives. Jadzia Dax is highly valued by Starfleet, but every officer puts his or her life on the line every day for the common good. Worf was aware of his duty and the consequences of failure, and nonetheless deserted his mission for strictly personal reasons. He was reprimanded for his actions and became ineligible for any further promotion or any permanent command position in Starfleet. While Worf was away during a mission, Jadzia visited a Bajoran temple on the station, where she was attacked and killed by an alien possessing the body of Gul Dukat. Worf's interests include soccer, Klingon operas, love poetry, poker, Klingon novels, and the holodeck for recreation, which include his combat calisthenics and commanding the historic Battle of Togvay. He has a fair amount of training and experience in martial arts and starship security and tactics. There appears to be no substance abuse by Worf, but he does seem to suffer from bouts of depression. He has received mental health counseling for his depression and for family issues with his son. He is not on any medication, and it appears that he has never been on any psychotropic medications. Mental status exam. Worf is a dark-skinned, muscular Klingon male with a dark brown lengthy mustache and a thick mane of hair, which is usually bound. He has brown eyes. He wears a metallic sash, a family heirloom, over his regulation uniform, slung diagonally over his right shoulder. He is widowed. Results of the mental status revealed an alert, attentive individual who showed no evidence of excessive distractibility, and he tracked the conversation well. The patient was casually dressed and groomed. Orientation was intact for person, time, and place. Eye contact was appropriate. There was no abnormality of gait, posture, or deportment. Speech functions were appropriate for rate, volume, porosity, and fluency, with no evidence of paraphasic errors. Vocabulary and grammar skills were suggestive of intellectual function within the average range. The patient's attitude was open and cooperative. His mood was eurythmic. Affect was appropriate to verbal content and showed broad range. Memory function was grossly intact with respect to immediate and remote recall of events and factual information. His thought process was intact, goal-oriented, and well-organized. Thought content revealed no evidence of delusions, paranoia, or suicidal homicidal ideation at this time. There was no evidence of perceptual disorder. His level of personal insight appeared to be good, as evidenced by his ability to state his current depression and by ability to identify specific stressors. Social judgment appeared to good. Results of the evaluation. The personality questionnaire looks at one's personality as a preference for opposite pairs, similar to the Myers-Briggs. Individuals naturally prefer one overall combination of type differences. The questionnaire showed that Worf's top 5 traits are brave, direct, reserved, self-disciplined, and honorable. The Myers-Briggs Typology Inventory motto regards personality type in individuals either born or developed certain preferred ways of thinking and acting. The Myers-Briggs Typology Inventory sorts some of these psychological differences into 4 opposite pairs, with a resultant 16 possible personality types. The 8 traits that an individual may fit into are introverted, extroverted, sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, and judging, perceiving. The introvert is energized by the inner world of reflection, thoughts, and contemplation. They need space and time alone. The extrovert is energized by interaction with others. They are people of action. Sensing individuals rely heavily on their 5 senses to take in information. They like concrete facts, organization, and structure. Intuitive individuals see the world through intuition. They learn by hunches. Thinking individuals decide on the basis of logic, analysis, and reasoning. Feeling individuals decide on the basis of their feelings, likes, and dislikes. Judging individuals try to order and control their world. They are decisive, but may be closed-minded and are usually not well organized. Perceiving individuals are spontaneous and do not like to be boxed in by deadlines or plans. With this information in mind, Worf presents as an ISTJ, introvert, sensing, thinking, and judging. Individuals with this personality type are quiet, serious, practical, matter-of-fact, realistic, and responsible. They make decisions logically about what should be done and work towards it steadily. They take pleasure in making everything orderly and organized, their work, their home, their life. They value tradition and loyalty. Summary recommendations. As the only Klingon in Starfleet, Worf has already achieved an illustrious and honorable career aboard the USS Enterprise, as well as played a key role in Empire politics. But he keenly feels the effects of an often tragic life caught uniquely between 2 conflicting cultures, immediately evidenced by the tradition Klingon baldricks he wears over his Starfleet uniform. The inner felt conflict stems in part from his perception of honor as taught but not always practiced by his native people, and is complicated by family relationships, which echo his duality of culture in both his personal and public life. He is often a dark, brooding presence. He maintains a certain social distance in most circumstances, but is highly loyal and dedicated to his friends and the ideas of the Klingon honor. His major challenge seems to be reconciling his violent Klingon heritage with his adaptive Federation upbringing. Though the Klingons are a war species, Worf was raised to be kind and caring. He always feels like an outsider, no matter how many friends he made on the Enterprise. He gets emotional when talking about his birth planet, but usually he maintains the highest level of composure as he feels it's necessary to downplay his aggressive Klingon genes. He presents as depressed, possibly due to the traumatic past and the recent loss of his wife. Worf does not meet the criteria for a depressive disorder, nor for a traumatic disorder, yet these conditions exist. Due to this, he is receiving a diagnosis of other specified depressive disorder, 311, and other specified trauma and stress-related disorder, 309.89. These categories apply to presentation in which symptoms characteristic of a depressive disorder and of a trauma and stress-related disorder that cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning predominantly, but do not meet full criteria for any one of these disorders. In the depressive disorder and the trauma and stress-related disorder diagnostic classes. It should be noted that these tests and diagnoses are typically for humans. Where Worf is half Klingon and half human, this evaluation needs to take this into consideration. It is the recommendation of this evaluator that Worf be allowed to become a Federation ambassador to his home world of Kronos. It is recommended, however, that he is monitored for suicidal ideation as he has attempted to commit suicide several times in the past. Individual therapy is also recommended to focus on grief and loss. Please let me know if any additional information is needed concerning the results of this evaluation. Deborah Keys, Masters in Counseling, licensed mental health counselor.